Super Tuesday, one of the most consequential nights of the election year. 15 states and 1 U.S. territory, a third of all the delegates up for grabs tonight, and a revealing look at what was on the minds of voters. President Biden, as expected, sweeping state victories, and a short time ago, Donald Trump taking a victory lap. ABC News senior congressional correspondent Rachel Scott joins us now from Trump headquarters at Mar-a-Lago.
Hey, Juju. Well, this is a big night for Donald Trump. The former president wanted to be dominant tonight, and he has projected wins in nearly every state that was voting on Super Tuesday. He took the stage here at Mar-a-Lago, taking a victory lap.
November 5th, it's right around the corner. November 5th is going to go down as the single most important day in the history of our country.
One person the former president did not mention on that stage, his last remaining Republican rival, Nikki Haley. Donald Trump clearly trying to pivot here to a general election and draw a sharp contrast with President Biden and what is likely to be a rematch in November. Juju.
Rachel, thank you. President Biden saying from the White House tonight that the results leave Americans with a stark choice between democracy and chaos, saying that Trump is, quote, driven by grievance and grift, focused on his own revenge and retribution, not the American people. He is determined to destroy our democracy, end quote. And while Donald Trump had a dominating performance tonight, his Republican challenger, Nikki Haley, won only one state, and that was Vermont. We turn now to ABC's Alex Perchet in Charleston, South Carolina.
Hey, Juju, it was a quiet day for Nikki Haley here in South Carolina. And quite frankly, it was not the Super Tuesday that she had hoped for. Yes, she did pick up one win in Vermont, but outside of that, it was a complete sweep for former President Donald Trump. Now, the Haley campaign this evening pushing back with a statement saying today in state after state, there remains a large block of Republican primary voters who are expressing deep concerns about Donald Trump. That is not the unity our party needs for success. Now, it still remains unclear what's next for Haley. She had said that she wanted to continue on past Super Tuesday, but it depended on how competitive she was today. So the campaign will have to determine exactly how competitive they are. But if Donald Trump is going to be successful in November, he's gonna have to win some of these Haley voters over. Juju?
Alex, thank you. The candidates are the same this time around, but the issues have changed. Voters making their voices heard and their concerns known at the polls.
Trump is the best president.
Pretty much a never-Trumper.
It's looking like a 2020 rematch, but 4 years later, the issues driving voters to the polls are different.
Body autonomy is very, very important to me.
I'm getting tired of paying $4, $3 for milk.
Among Trump supporters we spoke to, many mentioned the border.
The open border and the criminal aliens pouring across it.
I'm all for people being let into our country legally, but not illegally.
But Biden supporters seem to be split over the most pressing issues facing the nation.
Abortion is something I really care about, and access to people making their own health care decisions.
I'm concerned about the threat that Donald Trump poses to the decency and morals of this country.
Voters also say the war in Gaza could pose trouble for Biden.
I really don't like how he's handled Israel because I'm very worried about the humanitarian crisis there.
I am voting uncommitted. I believe that the war in Gaza is unacceptable, and Joe Biden has not done enough to earn my vote.
Age also a big factor in the race, especially for President Biden. In the latest New York Times Siena College poll, 47% of Americans think Biden at 81 is too old to be an effective president, versus 21% who think Donald Trump, who's 77, is too old.
He most definitely gonna need some help because of his age.
We need more younger leaders. There's no one that even holds a candle to President Biden, which I wish was not the case.
Many voters say they're just frustrated. They're stuck with the same candidates they had to choose between 4 years ago.
I think the American people deserve better than the candidates that we have.
If I'm being 100% transparent, I'm not excited about this election.
It's upsetting to me that we don't have more palatable candidates for both sides, that both sides are more excited about.
After tonight, Nikki Haley doesn't seem to have a real path forward. So where will her voters go come November?
I would most likely cast my vote for Biden. Personally, I feel like these two men both need to be out of the race. They're too old to run our country.
I'd never vote for Trump, period. You got my answer.
And we're joined now by ABC's Linsey Davis, who has been digging into the exit polls all night. And you've been tracking many of the sweep that former President Trump, managed to do short of Vermont. But you're also seeing some weak spots in the exit polling.
You know, what's interesting, we're reading the tea leaves, but in this case, we'll say the exit polls in particular. And there are some concerns potentially with the Nikki Haley voters, the people who she said that 40% she's staying in the race for. Take a look at this. In North Carolina, for example, her voters have said 80% they are not willing to support Donald Trump. That's a whopping number there. California, more of the same. 69% say they're not going to support Trump. In Virginia, we have a similar number. You see it right there. 69% of those Nikki Haley voters who are really locked in and saying even if she's not going to be there, they're not necessarily going to go for the nominee.
And yet voters on both sides unhappy with this candidate's questioning both if Biden and Trump are fit to be president. What have you seen from voters about what they think about each of these candidates?
Donald Trump voters are loyal, if nothing else. Take a look at what they're saying. 96% of Donald Trump voters say, yes, he is physically and mentally fit to be president. And then you see a total different story, really, when it comes to these Biden voters. According to a poll recently, just a few days ago with CNN and the New York Times, you see it right there, 61%. And these are people who voted for Biden in 2020 are saying that he may be too old to be effective as president.
It's fascinating how the perception may become the reality.
You're exactly right.
In 2024. Linsey Davis, thank you.
Thanks, Juju.
As always. We want to bring in Rick Klein, ABC News political director, who's joining us now from the big board. And President Trump is enjoying a resounding victory tonight, just shy of a sweep. But you're also seeing some warning signs in there.
Yeah, Juju, it's really striking. You see Donald Trump winning in red states, in purple states, even in blue states up in New England. But you are seeing some places where Republicans continue to resist the idea of Donald Trump. Vermont, of course, is the most stark example of this. That's where Nikki Haley actually wins her first state of this entire election cycle. She adds that to the District of Columbia, and it's right outside of D.C., in the suburbs in Virginia, that you see other potential warning signs. This is a state that Donald Trump wins by 30 points in Virginia, but in these immediate suburbs, you've got Nikki Haley winning by 15, 17 points in some of these places, 50 points in Arlington, right outside of D.C. So obviously that's not enough to overcome the strength that Haley has in other parts of that state and across the country. But it does tell you that there are lots of Republican voters out there that are resistant to the idea of Donald Trump running again.
And those independents are crucial. Now, tell us about the uncommitteds on the Democratic side, because there was a lot of hay made in Michigan, and now we're seeing it pop up in other states.
Yeah, and this was kind of one of the biggest surprises of the evening to me. First of all, Biden lost in American Samoa, the caucuses, which isn't a big deal by itself, but it tells you there's some questions around organizing. But if you start to spin through some of the big states here, to see that 19% of the vote in Minnesota was uncommitted. That's more even than we saw out of Michigan a week or so ago, and even more going for Dean Phillips, the congressman. And in a state like Virginia, Marianne Williamson, who barely was campaigning anywhere, plus Dean Phillips is about 10, 11%. North Carolina, again, 12%, 13%. So these are Democrats that aren't quite in the fold. We know that people are concerned around Joe Biden, whether it's his age or his position on Israel, but we're seeing that continue to get demonstrated as the voting continues.
Absolutely fascinating. That's the protest vote, the independent vote, all up for grabs in this crucial election.
You know it. Thanks, Juju.
Rick Klein, thank you. We're going to check in now with John Karl, chief Washington correspondent. John, huge night for President Trump, and yet just shy of a sweep, and you're seeing some warning signs in some of the exit polling.
Yeah, look, absolutely big night, no doubt about that. But Nikki Haley continued to win between 20, 30, upwards of 40% of the vote in state after state. And what's more significant than that is that her voters in exit polls are saying that they are unsatisfied with the idea of Donald Trump. I mean, overwhelmingly unsatisfied. And upwards of 80% are saying that they don't see themselves voting for the Republican nominee, any Republican nominee. The only other one besides Nikki Haley is Donald Trump.
And there was also the if he's convicted of a crime question.
Overwhelmingly. And by the way, the exit polls are fascinating. It's like two entirely different groups of people. The Nikki Haley voters saying that they are not comfortable voting for somebody who'd be convicted of a crime, and also saying that they believe the 2020 election wasn't stolen, whereas all of Trump's voters believe that it was stolen.
And yes, take us back in the time machine 4 years ago. What a difference. And the fact that American memories are so short.
Yeah, we forget. But this, I mean, you just have to think about how remarkable this comeback was. Donald Trump in 2020 lost to Joe Biden. Then he lost every effort he could possibly make to try to overturn the election. January 6th, he leaves the White House on January 20th, disgraced, a pariah in his own party. He gets impeached. 7 Republicans in the Senate vote to convict him. He comes back a bit. It takes some time. And then in 2022, virtually every major candidate he endorses in a contested race loses. He's blamed for the Republican losses in 2022. He, ultimately announces he's running for re-election. Virtually nobody endorses him. He's losing to Ron DeSantis in most polls, and then the comeback.
And yet here we are looking at general election polls with him up. John Karl, as always, thank you for the insights. And when we return, it's our Powerhouse Roundtable, breaking down the biggest obstacles facing Biden and Trump between now and November. Stay with us.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.